How do you solve a 2,000-year-old puzzle? Well, today we're diving into an absolutely incredible story of discovery. We're talking about the Oxyrhynchus treasure and how some of history's biggest secrets were literally unearthed from a pile of ancient garbage.
So, let's start with a really big question. Think about any ancient text, right? It could be philosophy, scripture, anything. How do we really know that the version we read today is what was actually written down 2,000 years ago?
I mean, the original manuscripts, they've been gone for ages. Take the books of the Bible, for example. For hundreds and hundreds of years, they were copied and translated completely by hand. That creates this huge 2,000-year gap between the originals and what we have now.
And that really gets us to the heart of the problem, this 2,000-year-old question, and the massive challenge of trying to figure out if these ancient texts are accurate.
Just think about it. For centuries, every single copy was made by hand. Imagine a scribe carefully writing out a document, and then another scribe copies that copy, and so on down the line. The huge question is, how can we be certain that little mistakes, or hey, even intentional changes, didn't creep into the text over all that time?
Well, the answer, believe it or not, wasn't found in some grand temple. It was found by two scholars on a very different kind of mission. So let's meet the papyrus hunters.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1895. Two fresh out of Oxford graduates, Bernard Grenfell and Arthur Hunt, they head over to Egypt. They've got backing from the Egyptian Exploration Society, but their goal is a little strange. They're on the hunt for ancient scraps of paper.
You have to remember, back then, archaeology was all about finding giant monuments and massive statues. But their mission? It was totally different. They weren't looking for gold or secret tombs. They were hunting for texts, for words written on fragile ancient papyrus.
But, their big idea didn't exactly pan out at first. They started digging in old graveyards and deserted cities, but they found, nothing. Zip. It was really starting to look like their whole mission was a total bust.
And then, everything changed in the most unexpected way possible. This brings us to the real turning point in our story, finding treasure in the trash.
So their search eventually led them to this ancient city called Oxyrhynchus, which was a pretty bustling place right on the banks of the river Nile.
And the location here is key. See, Oxyrhynchus wasn't just any old city. It was a major hub for growing papyrus reeds and turning them into writing material. You could almost say it was a city literally built on paper. Getting frustrated with their lack of luck, Grenfell and Hunt decided to try something radical. They completely ignored the temples and the tombs, and instead, they started digging in probably the last place you'd ever expect, the city's ancient garbage dumps. And what they found, it wasn't trash at all. It was a library, a gigantic buried treasure trove of knowledge that had been perfectly preserved by the dry Egyptian sand for nearly 2,000 years.
And we're not talking about a few fragments here. Between 1895 and 1897, they dug up over 500,000 pieces of ancient papyri. That is an absolutely mind-boggling amount of material, so much that scholars are still piecing it all together today.
So, what was in this giant pile of trash? Well, pretty much everything. They found some of the oldest copies we have of every book of the Bible, lost plays by famous writers like Sophocles, important classical texts, and even everyday stuff, like personal letters, tax returns, shopping lists. It was like a complete, unfiltered snapshot of life in the ancient world.
And this is how the discovery answers our first big question. For the very first time, scholars had a baseline. They could take a piece of a text from, say, the 3rd century found in Oxyrhynchus and compare it to a medieval manuscript from the 10th century. This let them track how texts changed over time and check, word for word, just how accurately they'd been preserved.
As one account put it, a treasure of ancient manuscripts was eventually discovered. And this treasure wasn't gold, it was knowledge. It was the missing link, the historical proof that scholars had been looking for all along.
So the takeaway here is just wow. It's truly incredible. A city's garbage, the stuff people threw away, gave us a direct window into the past. This discovery didn't just find some old papers. It actually bridged that 2,000-year gap, giving us the hard evidence we needed to confirm how remarkably accurate these ancient texts really are. And that leaves us with one final, kind of tantalizing question, doesn't it? If a city's forgotten trash could so totally change our understanding of the past, what other amazing secrets about our world are still out there, buried right under our feet, just waiting to be found?